Welcome back to this special edition of Meet the Press Now, live from Miami, where 5 Republican candidates will square off in their third debate in a little more than 3 hours from now. Among them, Vivek Ramaswamy, whose campaign tells NBC News that he will be, quote, unconstrained on the debate stage tonight. Joining me now is Tricia McLaughlin, Senior Advisor and Communications Director for Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign. What does unconstrained Vivek Ramaswamy look like? I didn't realize there were constraints on him in the prior 2 debates.
He's going to keep being himself and speaking the truth, even when it makes people uncomfortable. We came into this campaign 0.0%. No one knew who the heck Vivek Ramaswamy was, much less could say his name. And here he is. We have a long way to go, but we waited until we saw the whites of their eyes. People were not making decisions September, October. Now we're getting into the landscape when people are actually starting to decide who they're going to vote for. We're starting to spend more money, real resources on the ground in Iowa and New Hampshire, and I think you're going to see that kind of momentum tonight on the debate stage. I know a lot of people are talking about Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. I think tomorrow they will be talking about Vivek Ramaswamy.
Well, your guy's certainly shown a opportunism when it comes to taking his shots on the debate stage, but I want to ask you about how he approaches the guy who won't be there. And I've asked all the different folks we've talked to on this program a version of this question. And for you guys, I'm mostly interested in this because how do you start to take some of Donald Trump's share of the pie, which you're ultimately going to have to do if you want to be the nominee, while your candidate's walking around saying he's still the best president we've ever had? I can't make that make sense in my mind.
So, Garrett, of course, to us, Donald Trump was a wonderful president, but there's 3 things that Vivek can get that Donald Trump simply can't. That's disaffected Democrats, independents, and young people. Young people are coming out in droves for Vivek. We see at our events about 40% of people who go to our events and donate in small dollars to Vivek are either not registered Republicans or independents or have never voted before.
Is that a stylistic thing, or are there issues that you can draw that out on? And do you need to make that contrast more directly on a stage like the one you'll have tonight?
I think you're going to see it tonight, but I think he's going to continue spreading his message. People are still figuring out who Vivek is, what he stands for. He's not a reformer. He is a revolutionary, and you're going to see that on stage tonight.
He voted in that Ohio election that we've been talking about today. He voted against enshrining these abortion protections. Is there anything about what we saw in those results last night that make him question either, certainly, well, I presume not the policies that he supports, but the politics of how you have to approach this issue with an electorate who keeps telling Republicans, we do not agree with the way you're trying to handle this?
Absolutely, Garrett. I think that last night showed the Republican Party, at least the establishment piece, is not in touch with our own base. We don't know what our own base is asking for. Vivek did vote no on both issues yesterday, and he is unapologetically pro-life. That being said, how do we talk about those tough issues like abortion? We should talk about more sexual responsibility for men, birth control access, adoption. We need to talk more to women. Even these deep red states like Ohio, they're not voting with us. We need to stop being complacent and start actually wanting to win elections. And that's what Vivek Ramaswamy actually brings to the table, that youthful vigor, those fresh ideas, and that's what we need to win these upcoming elections.
Do those conversations still include bans based on a certain number of weeks? I mean, is that an effective policy for Republicans going forward?
I think you do have to look at weeks. I think that's unequivocally a question we should ask, but what are reasonable limitations is also what we have to revisit.
The other issue that I think is going to be hanging over this entire debate is the war, which obviously this has been only going on since the last debate. Vivek got banged up on foreign policy at the last debate. I mean, Nikki Haley was very aggressive in criticizing him. So, too, was the former vice president, now former candidate, Mike Pence. How does he establish himself as credible on those issues with the war going on, given he doesn't really have a resume that speaks to them?
Yeah, Vivek very much has made foreign policy front and center of his campaign. What I think is very interesting is you look back to last debate with Nikki Haley beating him up. I wonder if she'd be saying the same things on that debate stage she said about Ukraine. When we have now Israel, it looks like there's a good chance we could be going into that war too. Do we have the munitions? Do we have that industrial base to supporting both wars? Vivek grew up in the wake of 9/11, right? A lot of his friends, people his age, classmates, peers, those were the kids who went to war, fought and died for this country in Afghanistan, and for what?
Last question very quickly before they open the trap door that drops us out of the bottom of this set if we go over. But how will you judge a victory tonight? What does a successful night look like for your candidate?
If Vivek speaks his truth, if he's going to make people on that debate stage uncomfortable, and they're going to get mad. And maybe we'll see some mics cut off, but he's ready, and he's not going to hold back. He's going to be unconstrained, as I mentioned.
Unconstrained.
Earlier.
It's on the record. All right, Tricia McLaughlin, thank you for your time and for your preview of what we will see tonight.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.